Before we jump into today's episode of the Project Podcast, I'd like to talk a little bit about what to expect today. First, we have a very nice 45-minute segment with me and a newcomer, Carter Jones. This kid's really great. He's really interested in podcasting, and he'll probably end up being a regular on the show, so I hope you all enjoyed that part. We talk a lot about March Madness. We give out some awards. Really, really entertaining stuff. This kid's great. You guys are going to love this guy. And after that, stick around after that point, because we're going to talk about Nintendo Switch 2. I'm flying solo for that part. We'll talk about a lot of news about the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm a big video game guy, many of you may know, and I think that this Nintendo Switch news we've gotten over the last couple of days is really, really important, and I think it's good that we're kind of all on the same page. So I kind of want to drop some info. Won't be super long, but I think you should stick around and enjoy that part. You're going to learn a lot, and I think it's really important. A new video game system marks a new generation of gamers. It marks a new generation culturally. And there's a lot of really, really cool stuff coming your way from Nintendo. So stick around and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Project Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Lewis, and today is a little bit different. We're going Zoom style meeting today, and I'm with a good friend of mine, Carter Jones. Carter, introduce yourself, my man.
I'm currently just a high school student right now in New Hampshire, and I've been really into sports recently, and I've been my whole life. So I met Connor at a just a little sports summit, so I just wanted to hop on a podcast with him and talk about some sports.
Well, Carter, again, thank you for being here. I know for you it's pretty late. I know you had baseball and all that, so I really want to say I really appreciate you taking your time and being here with me today. You set up some really great categories for us to talk about today, but do you have any big picture thoughts about March Madness so far? Are you disappointed? Are you really happy with the results so far? Talk us through it.
I'd probably say honestly, pretty disappointed. Disappointed because my bracket wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. But
Right.
also because, I feel like there's a lot less madness this year in March. All one seeds in the Final Four isn't necessarily ideal for someone who's looking for upsets. But I feel
Yep.
like also like the Elite Eight and Sweet 16 was really high seed heavy. And I like to see upsets. I like to see Cinderella stories, and I feel like there's a lack of that. But yeah, again, it's supposed to be the number one seeds technically based on how they're seeded, but I'm definitely excited to see how the rest of it plays out for sure.
So obviously, like you said, for one seeds, that's not very common. I look back at the last couple of years. 2024, we had two one seeds, Purdue and UConn. We
Yeah.
had a 4 seed with Bama, and we had NC State as the 11 seed. And then the year before, in 2023, we had two 5 seeds with Miami and San Diego, one 4 seed with UConn, and a 9 seed with Florida Atlantic.
Mm.
Overall, do you think that March Madness has just changed forever? Do you think we're ever going to go back to a lot of upsets, or do you think this is just how it's going to be for the time being, just all 1 seeds every year?
Um, I think it's kind of like a 1 year type of thing. I feel like the one seeds this year are really strong. Florida looks great. Duke looks
Yeah.
amazing. Auburn's got two of the best players in the country right now, and obviously Houston has one of the best coach teams in the country. So, I'm not really surprised by it this year, but I don't know if it'll stay for the next couple of years for sure.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your insight because honestly, you probably know more March Madness than I do, honestly, and I don't usually say that. So I definitely appreciate your insight. So if you're ready, we're just going to jump right into the categories if you're good with that.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So your first one you gave me was favorite upset pick. I'm going to let you go first on this one.
So the team I chose was McNeese State.
Mm.
There's a lot of buzz for them going into March Madness with obviously their manager. But besides that, I think their record showed before the season that they were good, and I think that was a pretty popular upset pick for the people who were like making their brackets. I feel like that was one of the ones where if you got it right, it was majority of people chose that. Um, Going into that game, I knew Clemson was one of the better ACC teams, but overall the ACC was a little bit weaker this year, so I was definitely
Yeah.
glad with that pick as it hit. And I actually had McNeese State going longer and further than they did. So it was a little bit unfortunate to see them get knocked out in the second round, but I was definitely like watching that game. I had a smile on my face because they play basketball the way I like to watch it. They like to
Yeah.
attack the hoop and like go get boards and put back dunks. So I was glad to watch that game. I like that pick a lot. So
So with the manager, like you mentioned, is that going to be you in like 3 years? Are you going to be the manager of an underdog D1 team or what?
I mean, if I could play on that team, that'd be nice. But no, if I was a manager, like he was, like the amount of
Yeah,
money that he pulls in from the NIL deals, like that's like, I mean, that's the dream. Just watching basketball and getting paid for it. I mean, that's got to be like up there with the best jobs in the world. But
absolutely. I have a lot
yeah,
of McNeese stuff later, but I'm going to give you my favorite upset. And I don't know if you're going to expect this one, but I have New Mexico over Marquette.
mm,
Uh, New Mexico, easy, pretty convincing win over Marquette. They run into the 2C Michigan State, get smoked, honestly. Uh,
yeah,
that game, they seemed very starter heavy. Um, no New Mexico athlete off the bench played more than 7 minutes in that Marquette game, but it was more like Marquette. I mean, we know Marquette as a basketball program that's consistent. They're not always gonna like be super competitive, but we know that they're gonna make some noise when the time comes. Um, I have over here the this free throw difference is insane. I don't know if you know this, but New Mexico that game got 21 free throw attempts, 86% from the free throw line, and Marquette had 12 attempts on 58%.
yeah,
I don't think that
that'll
comes
win it.
down to, yeah, I don't think it comes down to any like uh, preference, but I think it just comes down to New Mexico being more aggressive. And I think that it speaks to a lot of what you need to upset a team that's much better than you in March Madness. You need two really strong players, like New Mexico had with Nelly Jr. Joseph and Donovan Dent. They combined
Mm,
for 40 points that game. New Mexico had 75. That's more than half their points. So I
mm.
think that goes to show what you need if you want to upset teams. You need two really strong players, maybe not all Americans, but you need two really strong players nonetheless. Do you have any
So,
thoughts on that?
yeah, so kind of to bounce off that, speaking of Donovan Dent, I don't know if you heard, but he entered the transfer portal and committed somewhere. So are you somewhat a little bit surprised about that? As I mean, he's one of the top guards in the country, and his team just had he had an upset and could have had a run in March Madness. But are you surprised that he entered the transfer portal?
No, not at all. Listen, it's a totally different college landscape than what we're used to. The college landscape that I'm used to, because I'm a little older than you, honestly.
Hmm.
But so I remember a time where a player would just stick it out for 4 years and you'd be a hometown hero per se. We're in an NIL era. Players want to get paid. New Mexico is not the place if you want to get paid. And like you said, Donovan's a great talent. I'm not doubting that. I've seen a lot of film on him. I think he's awesome. But if he wants to make some money, because I don't know how that's going to work when he decides if he wants to go to the NBA or not. But if he wants to make money now, New Mexico is not the location for that. And I think that I'm sure you can agree with that. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, he went. I think it was the right move for him. I feel like if he wants to push his game forward, do you know what grade he is right now? Is he like
I
a
think he's going to be a senior. I might be wrong on that, but I'm sure someone will fact check me on that. But
yeah?
um,
Well, I think like I mean the dream is to make it to the NBA, but right now with how much money people pull in from NIL, I mean you can stay in college your senior year and still make good money. But I feel like if he wanted to go to the NBA, that transfer was probably the move that he needed to make because that could maybe give him a chance to play in the G League like a bunch like the
Mhm.
graduating seniors did this past college year and in previous years.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good move for him.
I mean, like you said, a lot of players can make a lot of money just playing college basketball. I mean, look at Cooper Flag. He's making more money now than a lot of players are
Mm,
right now. A lot of bench players. Obviously, he's not making 40 million, but I'd be damned if he doesn't stick around and he might make that much eventually, right?
yeah.
So I think you have a good point when you're talking about coming to a bigger market for a bigger scouting pool. And I think you have a point. I think if he plays in a stronger conference, I think that can change perspective on him and increase his draft stock, especially if he wants to go to the G League or something. I think that'd be a great move. So I think you make a great point there.
Mhm.
All right, you ready to move on to biggest bracket busting game?
Yes, I am.
All right, why don't you go ahead?
Um, for me, that was St. John's losing the second round.
Okay.
Um, I mean, that was a little bit surprising to me because I had them actually in my championship winning it. So for me,
Me
that was
too.
like that was bad. Um, but looking back at that game, that pick having them go that far wasn't a good idea. I think. I mean, obviously, I can say that now because they lost. But looking at Arkansas with their coach and the players they had in that team. Like I like that team a lot, and I probably should have realized that before I made my bracket. But I mean, that was definitely the biggest bracket busting game. But at the same time, I'm not really surprised with the structure of Arkansas with Coach Calipari and like guys like Carter Knox, DJ Wagner, and all those guys in that team. So
Are you a big Rick Pitino guy? Because you seem like you would be.
I like him a lot. Yeah. In my opinion, he's one of the best coaches of all time, and definitely maybe like top five basketball coaches of all time, NBA, college, regardless. I mean, that's kind of what I was banking on going to that game. And, RJ Lewis really just had a really rough game that game. And there's a lot of drama around him, and that's why he kind of went to the transfer portal. But, I think it was just the overall just fluky game for St. John's, and I was a little bit surprised watching it because, I mean, they were down, it felt like the whole entire time. So it was just a little bit frustrating to see, but I don't mind Arkansas winning that game at the same time because I like a lot of players and their coach on that team as well. So
Yeah, that's a great game. I watched it. I thought it was going to be a good game no matter who won, no matter what the outcome was. Question about Rick Pitino. Do you think that this is his last stop as far as a team goes, or do you think he's got more in him?
I
It's a tough
think he'll probably,
question, honestly.
yeah, I think at this point in time he'll probably stay here, and he probably doesn't have a lot more years left in him. His son's coaching right now. I think his son actually just moved to a different team to coach in college.
Mhm.
But I see him probably just staying with St. John's for a couple more years. I don't know how many, and then after that, there could be a chance that he goes and helps out with his son and does like an assistant coaching job with him. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but I think head coaching wise, this is probably where he'll stay, and
Yeah,
for just not much longer though.
I see. Yeah, again, I don't have many thoughts on that game. I did have St. John's going a lot farther. I'm sure a lot of people did. I am also a big Rick Pitino guy. It's funny. I was talking to the URI tennis coach, and he's a European guy, but he's huge on Rick Pitino. So it
Hmm.
just shows his outreach. I mean, this is a tennis coach who has nothing to do with basketball. He's not a basketball guy. He's a huge tennis guy, though, and he idolizes Rick Pitino, and I think that speaks to how much people love him. Unless you're against St. John's, but a lot of people are gonna really root for Rick Pitino, which is weird because he's kind of a hard ass, honestly. So,
Yeah.
but any other thoughts on that game before I tell you mine?
Uh, no, I would like to hear yours though for sure.
You're definitely not gonna see this one coming. This was a game I knew I was gonna lose, but I had to pick it. It's my home state team, Bryant, losing to Michigan State.
Ah.
Uh, did I have them going all the way? Yes, I did. I knew they were going to lose, but honestly, Bryant is a school I really, really love just because it's my home state. Honestly, I actually know a kid who walked on, my boy Jason Seepy. If he's listening, come on the show. We'll interview you. But listen, I really like Bryant as a team, not just because I have a friend on the team, but actually they have a lot of very talented players. And I was kind of wishing they'd come alive maybe, but they got crushed 87-62. I have down, and it was shocking because it wasn't the Michigan State starters that killed them. They had two bench guys, Cohen Carr and Trey Holloman. Carr had I have 18 points and 9 rebounds, 6 of those offensive rebounds, and Trey Holloman 14 points on 4 of 5 from three. And it's just shocking that even no, shows how good a team like Michigan State is compared to a normal team from Rhode Island. If your starters play pretty poorly for their usual, and you just have two bench guys that can just come alive and take advantage of that and absolutely take over a game and change it completely. But again, I know that's not a super popular pick, but I did want to give a shout out to
Yeah,
Brian
well,
because I think they had a good year.
yeah, well, I don't mind that pick, honestly. I mean, if I saw a team that I was really big on and they were in the tournament, like I did that with North Carolina, I took them to the Sweet
Yeah.
16 because I'm a big North Carolina fan. So I don't mind that pick. But speaking on Cohen Carr, I think this year is probably the biggest year I've been into college basketball just because of the freshman class this year and the sophomore class because I really try and keep track of high school basketball a lot. So I remember Cohen Carr in high school and he was like one of the biggest high flying guys around. And I mean, he shows it with those boards you were talking about, like 5 or 6 offensive rebounds that he had.
Sure.
I mean, that's like a regular stat line for him because he's like he attacks the rim, he goes up, he gets the fantastic dunks that he have. So, I don't mind that Bryant pick. But I mean, Michigan State definitely looks good. I like a lot of guys in that team. So,
Now, are you partial to any New Hampshire team? Because obviously you're from there. Are you partial to one? Like, are you a big UNH guy? If they were in the tournament, do you have them going all the way?
um, I wouldn't take them all the way, but and I would definitely try and take them as an upset for sure. I'd definitely be somewhat favored towards them. Their basketball team I don't believe is very good this year anyways, but if they somehow snuck into a tournament, I'd find a way to take them to go somewhere for sure.
I'll leave you with this as far as UNH goes. I would say send in some film. I'm sure they could use you as at least a practice player. Honestly, they might take you in. Honestly, I'm
For
just
sure,
saying
yeah.
it's
It's not a
it's
bad
been a rough
idea.
ride for them. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
rough ride so far. But um, are you ready to move on to
Yeah.
favorite team going further next year?
hmm
So I have your guys at McNeese. Now I really like McNeese, and you said a lot of some of the same points I had about them, but they have a brand new head coach, Bill Armstrong. He just got signed not too long ago. This guy is a first time head coach, so I think there's going to be a lot of energy. There's going to be a lot of that big hype wave that's going to build. Whenever there's a new head coach he's never been a head coach before. I wrote down his last few years. This is the last 10 years. Assistant at Ole Miss, assistant at LSU, assistant at Link Academy, then assistant at Baylor, and now he's the head coach of McNeese after a long career being an assistant. He was an assistant long before that 10-year stretch, but I think usually there's already a lot of hype around McNeese. Like you said, I mean, you said again, I'm just going to repeat the same points. I'm going to echo you a lot, especially after that Clemson upset. That's a huge win. I don't think anyone really expected that. I mean, at least if you're casual.
hmm
But then you bring in a brand new head coach. You have some pretty promising guys that are returning, like DJ Richards and Sincere Parker, and they were already a top 25 defense in the country. I think when you put that all together and you bring in all the hype and all the excitement that's surrounding them, especially after the manager they had, I know he transferred, I guess, which is crazy how a manager will transfer like that. But I still think there's going to be a lot of the same hype that surrounds McNeese, at least for next year. And I think they're going to do a lot better next year.
I like that. I like that a lot. I feel like there's always like 1 or 2 teams that sneak in and then they gain a lot of hype and then they might get some more recruits coming to them.
Yeah.
Um, to speak on their manager though, the rumors are since their coach transferred and he
Yeah.
went to NC State that he followed him. So I think that kind of speaks to that. But yeah, I like that pick for McNeese. I feel like they're going to be good again next year and they'll keep a little bit of hype with them for sure. But yeah, I agree with that for sure.
All right. So now what's your team that you picked?
So I originally only had 1 team, but I picked up another team
Yeah.
today. Um, Duke. I mean, there's a chance that they get Cooper Flag back, and if they do
Yeah.
that, I mean, they have a really good chance of winning the tournament this year, and they will have that again next year. And the freshman class that they're bringing in with the Boozer twins, they're seniors right now in high
Yeah.
school. They're like top 5 recruits in the country. They're
Might be top three,
filthy.
honestly.
Yeah, I think Cameron Boozer is the better one. He might be like
Yeah.
the second recruit right behind AJ DeBanza. But I
Yeah.
mean, that's like their team. Duke's always going to be that's really good. But looking at next year, that might be one of their better teams in recent history.
Yeah. So what's your other team? And
My
I'll,
other
I'll give
team
you
that I
some notes
have,
about Duke, but yeah.
my other team that I have, is actually Michigan. And the
Okay.
reason I'm saying that is because as a North Carolina fan, I was big on Elliot Cadeau going into this sophomore year, and I was
Yeah.
hoping to see a lot of shine from him, and I was disappointed. I mean, I was hoping for a lot more. Liked him in high school a lot, and I was excited to see him, and he kind of just became so passive when he got to college. And like watching him in high school, I mean, he was a high flyer. He'd like have crazy dunks, and he'd be like one of the best players on his team as he played with Tahad Pettiford for Auburn. But I like Michigan next year. And, they had a good run this year. They gave Auburn a run for their money. But
hmm
I'm also just really rooting for Michigan a little bit just because I want to see Elliot shine. I'd want to see him in the NBA. going into his junior season, I think this is the most important season that he'll have in college. I mean, this is like the make or break season for him if he wants to make it to the NBA. So I'm just excited to see them next year. I feel like they're going to be good again. I feel like he's going to take over, I hope, and bring them to the March Madness again and maybe give them a little run as well.
So let me ask you a question about Cooper Flag. Duke is known for having white guys that people don't like. JJ Redick and Christian Laettner are the most well known. Do you think that Cooper Flag will get to that territory if he stays at Duke next year, or do you think that he's just known as like the very nice white kid from Maine?
I think he'll be disliked by the person who ends up getting the first pick in the draft this year if he stays. Um, but no, I mean, I feel like the way he carries himself and all the stuff that you see, you can tell that he's a good kid, and I don't think that'll change. It could change a little bit, but if I were him going into next year, I wouldn't stay at Duke. I've
Mm,
I've I've seen people who have high draft stocks and they end up staying another year. And college, in my opinion, college money is only temporary. You're only there for a couple more years, 4 or 5 more years, really. And I think in the NBA, I mean, especially a guy like Cooper Flag, the only thing you can do is hurt your draft stock. I mean, you're already projected to be the number one pick. You're like just as good as Zion was coming out of college. What's the point of staying another year? I mean, if you don't win the championship this year, I see it a little bit, but I mean, if he wins the national championship this year, I think it's got to be set in stone that he goes to the NBA. But if for some reason he stays back, you know, now, I might mark down Duke now that they're going to win the national championship again next year. So,
are you a betting guy? Are you into sports gambling? I know you're a little young,
I,
but
yeah, no, I'm not. I always see like the lines, stuff like that, and like Sports Center, stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I'm not a sports bettor, but if I had to, I feel like my picks would be good if I did.
Absolutely. I agree with you. You seem like you know what you're talking about at least. I mean maybe I'm an outsider looking in, but as far as well, I'll ask you one more question about Duke and we'll move on. Honestly, I love talking about Duke because I think they're such an interesting team. But as far as Cooper Flag goes, you talked about the NBA. What team would be ideal for him to go to get that first pick?
I'm thinking about the worst teams in the NBA right now, and like what
Yeah,
are like the odds for him. And people say like the reason why he should stay is so he doesn't have to go to a team like um the Wizards. But I mean, looking now with this, I don't know if you realize that, but the AJ Johnson trade that went down with Kyle Kuzma
of
and the
course.
core they have right now, if I were him, I'd be excited to go to Washington. Alex Sarr isn't the best second overall pick in recent
Yeah.
history, but I still
Mm.
see good upside for him. Bilal Coulibaly, I love him. So I feel like that's a good core for him. You put him at the three there, you put Sarr um, at the five, maybe put him at the four and put AJ Johnson at the three and put Poole and Coulibaly around him. I think that they make some noise. Maybe sneak into the play-in tournament next year.
Yeah.
But if I were him, I wouldn't be so mad if I went to Washington because they are really young and they have a good core right now. And I like Jordan Poole and I like him developing with some good young players around him. So I wouldn't mind that. That's probably my best pick as they have probably the best odds to get him if they get the number one pick. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Washington's as bad a spot as people are making it seem to be. But also, if they don't get Cooper Flag, there's a good chance they're still pretty bad next year.
mhm.
But I think from a marketing point of view, if Philly somehow got the first pick, and I know the NBA is a little shady sometimes, and they like to mess with the draft a little bit. From a marketing point of view, getting a guy like Cooper Flag in Philly would be a huge swing for the NBA, or him in San Antonio. And I'm not a big San Antonio guy. I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. I think I've told you that at least a dozen times now.
Yep.
So I don't want to see another Texas team do well. But if Flag goes to San Antonio and Wembanyama's healthy and Fox is healthy, they're going to be scary for like a decade and a half, man.
I mean, if I could have hopped on the bandwagon train 5 years ago, knowing what the San Antonio would look like now, I would have. Well, not actually, as I'm a Celtics fan, but
Mm.
if they manage to get the number one pick and get Cooper Flag, I think it's wraps for the league for the next from like 3 years from now to 8 years from now. If they
Yep.
have Stephon Castle, who is
Yeah, he's good too.
probably going to be Rookie of the Year, De'Aaron
It's great.
Fox, Wembanyama, and Cooper Flag. I mean, you could put me on that starting lineup and we'd still win the championship just because how filthy that team would be. I mean, it would be insane. But yeah, I mean, if they manage to get Cooper Flag, I would honestly be mad too because they would probably beat the Celtics in the championship in 2 or 3 years' time. So yeah, I mean, that would be really scary to see.
Yeah. So to move on from talking about Cooper Flag, because I know we might have lost some viewers here talking about Cooper Flag so damn much.
Yeah.
Which players look good for the draft next year? In your opinion, I have two personally. We might have the same ones though.
Um, I had Maryland going pretty far, but I'm a huge Derek Queen guy, and people have
Mm.
him going in all different places in this next coming draft. I've seen him top 10, I've seen him
Yeah.
lottery, but I've also seen him in like the mid to high 20s. And I'm seeing that, I'm like, as a Celtics fan, if we get the 28th, 29th pick and he's somehow there, I'll be completely fine with that. But I mean, his play and his pace, he reminds me of like a smaller Jokic that can kind of have that
Mm.
little playmaking. He's kind of a little bit slower, a little unathletic, but I mean, his post
He's a
moves
little
and the way,
slower than Jokic.
yeah. I mean, I know it's crazy to see that, but I mean, he's not like one of those athletic centers like they have in the NBA all around now. And
Yeah.
I think that's why his draft stock might be a little bit lower. But after this tournament, his game winner they had against Colorado State, the way he played, the way he carried his team, I think I love him in the draft. And I think a team would be lucky to get him. Like I could see a team like if the Suns managed to get him, even though they have no picks, but like a team like the Suns would thrive with him on that team. I mean, I love him, and I feel like he'd be really good on any team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think this is one of the most interesting drafts we've had in a few years? Because, like you said, a lot of players can go from 10th pick to the 30th pick. Do you think this is the most
Mhm.
interesting we've had in a couple of years?
I think so for sure. I mean, the top three of Flag, Dylan Harper, and Ace Bailey.
Mm.
Those are three really high ceiling guys. I've seen people say they could be like all NBA in like their first 3 years, but like they're like team changers regardless. But I think um the rest of like the lottery should be really good. I like a lot of guys in there. And I think the whole first round should be really good too. I feel like this is going to be the most like jumbled to where, a team needs to pick more what they need than who's the best player at that time. Because I feel like it's going to be more of like, there's a lot of more even players. It's not going to be like a lot top heavy compared to previous years.
Yeah, you could definitely say top heavy. That's probably the best way to put it. Now, I'm going to interject with my first guy. I don't know how much you know about him. I spent a few hours doing research on a bunch of players. Danny Wolf out of Michigan really stuck out to me.
Hmm.
Listen, he played really, really well against Auburn. And his draft stock shot up after that game. He went from 27 to 21 in a week, which may not seem crazy, but in a draft that's pretty competitive, it's pretty good. I wrote down his downsides and his upsides. His downsides, listen, he's a big, big problem on turnovers, especially for a guy that's not exactly an incredible passer. He can get a little lazy and sloppy at times. Free throw is a pretty big problem that you can fix that in the NBA. That's my biggest thing with that one is that that's something that you get lethal shooter in there, and he'll fix you in 2 weeks. Trust me, he could
Hmm.
fix my free throw. Honestly, it's pretty bad. And he's also pretty slow. I mean, we talked about how there's guys like Jokic who can take advantage of their skill while still being a little slow. I think that he can translate too. As far as upside goes, listen, he's a big guy. He's 7 feet. I think he's 245. He's got great rim protection. He can shoot a little bit, which is not something super common. When you jump right into the NBA, usually 7-footers aren't shooting threes like that, and he can drill some threes. He has a little bit of a bag. He can do step backs. He can take pull up mid ranges. He's got everything you want of a 7-footer in 2025. I want to know if you have any thoughts on him, how much you know about Danny Wolf.
I like him a lot. I think that Michigan team was really like this year. They're predicated on their two bigs. I mean,
Hmm.
their lineups would consist of two 7-footers at times, and that's really hard to guard, especially in college. But he seems like a guy that could go a little bit later on, but he could be like one of those like top five guys at the end of his freshman year in the NBA. Because I
Yep.
mean, he seems like one of those guys that's going to be like an immediate translator into the NBA. Like some guys you'll know they're going to take a year or two to really translate their talent from college. But he seems like a guy that's going to be get right in there and he's going to be good from the jump. So yeah, I like that pick a lot. I like him a lot. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think he can be really a great competitor. There's a lot of teams that could use a big man that can shoot. I think pretty much every team really could when you really
Mhm.
break it down. And this is not a point about his skill. Maybe one of the best names that we've had in the draft in a while. Danny Wolf is just an incredible name.
Mhm.
You don't think that like a Lakers jersey with Wolf 00 or something on the back would sell 1 million?
Yeah, that would be
Absolutely,
good
I'd buy
for
one.
that'd be good for the teams as well. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Imagine he goes to Minnesota. Oh my
That
God.
that would be picture perfect for him.
It
That could
it
actually
writes
happen
itself.
though, based on how they look this year too. He could definitely like go in that pick range. So yeah, for
Yeah, and
sure.
I'm not opposed. And listen, I'm a big Gobert guy, but I think we're getting to the point where we might have to consider moving on from him. I think it was a big mistake trading Cat over Gobert. Danny Wolf might solve your problem. He's like a little bit of both in a way, where he's very rim protection heavy, but he's slow like Gobert, but he can shoot a little bit like Towns. So I think Minnesota gets Danny Wolf, which I don't think is a bad pick at all. I really like Danny Wolf. Again, I want to make that very clear. I really like this kid. I've seen a lot of him. I think that's just a great move. Now I'm going to talk you through my next one. Kid out of Auburn, Johnny Broom. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that.
Janai Broom, yeah, yeah. I
Janai
think
Broom. Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce it either, but I think it's Janai. But yeah,
Okay. I'll just call him Broom because I don't want to get anyone offended if you're an Auburn fan. Listen, we know he's one of the best forwards in the draft. But a lot of mock drafts have him ranging anywhere from the 20s to the 30s. But again, like I said with Danny, that shows a lot about how competitive this draft is. He put up great games with Michigan and Michigan State. I know they're still in it, so we'll see how he does in the Final Four and maybe the national championship. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but we'll get there. Again, he's played really well. His stats and his gameplay speak for itself. We know he's great. He played through an injury in that last game. He came back in that second half and he played pretty well. And I think a lot of teams will like that. That's not something you can teach. You can teach shooting, you can teach rebounding, passing, all that. You can't teach grit, playing through an injury. I'm one of those guys that plays through injuries, even when it's probably not best for the team, just because I love to play. And you can tell Broom is one of those guys that loves to play. He can rebound. His pick and roll is tremendous. I mean, listen, this guy's like 7 foot and he can jump through the roof. And he's another big guy. You can't teach size either. You can't teach size. You can't teach grit. Now, he's got some problems. He's going to be 23 come this July. His jumper's pretty bad. And overall, his floor spacing isn't great. And again, the free throw thing's kind of a problem, but again, you can fix that. But the jump shot is maybe something that would turn a lot of teams off. But I think a team like Denver would love a guy like that who can really play with Jokic and be overloading these teams that are a little smaller.
I like that a lot, and I think the knock on guys like Broom is that he's older. And I feel like that's a
Yeah.
really overrated kind of thing. Because if you look at it, Dalton Connect went to the Lakers this year. And I think he's had a really good rookie season. And the reason he probably went 17 is just because of his age. I mean, skill wise, he's up there with a top 10 pick. But just because of how old he was going into his freshman season, that really like knocks teams off as they want to have younger guys that are going to be able to translate. But in my opinion, a guy like Broom as well, I mean, he's been in college for a little bit longer than some of these other freshmen who are like one and dones, but he's also developed his skills and he's already like mastered his craft to where I think a guy like him, he'll translate quicker than some of those younger guys will technically, just because he's a little bit older and he knows what he's doing out there. I feel like so I like that pick a lot, and I think if wherever he goes, he'll find some success in the NBA.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And listen, I'm not against like 22-year-old rookies, but a lot of teams are. And I know we saw Dalton, but a lot of teams are pretty nervous. There was a great shift where we went from players playing all 4 years at college during the 80s and 90s. And then when you get to the later half of the 90s, when you get guys like Kobe and Garnett, then it starts to kind of shift back to the high score or one and done. And then it really peaks with LeBron. I think that LeBron Wade Melo class where those guys were all one and done. And that's where we really peaked with the whole, we're just going to take these guys because they're young and we'll just hope for the best. Same thing with Darko
Mhm.
Milicic, where he was 18 and Detroit still took him. You're just like, well, he's young, he's European. He might be good. He might not. And I think it's going to kind of swing back eventually, though. I think this is when we're going to start to swing back. We're going to see guys like Broom a guy like Dalton like last year and who are really developed in college and going to really take over the league pretty soon. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think almost as an example of that happening right now is I don't know if you've seen it, but Drew Timmy, he used to play for
Yes.
Gonzaga and he played on the Nets G League team. He just moved up to the NBA and he's already proving himself. So I
Mhm.
think like that can definitely happen. Like a guy like Caleb Love, he could definitely find his way to play on an NBA team. Um, there are already guys in the G League that I like. Armando Bacot. I mean, he could also find his way to make it to the NBA roster someday as well. So I think, yeah, for sure, I like that a lot, and I agree with that for sure.
All right, now you gave me one last category, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. Most exciting game for you so far? I know we haven't reached Final Four and national championship yet, but as far as we stand right now, what's your most exciting game so far?
Um, the Gonzaga and Houston game.
Mm.
I I was sweating through that game because I picked Gonzaga to have an upset and I took them to the Final Four. And I just had a feeling I liked some guys on that team. But I mean, that was a really, really, really good game, and it came down to the wire. And it was a little bit of a late comeback for Gonzaga against Houston. And like that, I was praying that that was going to be like Houston was going to be like one of those one seeds that doesn't make it that far. I mean, now they're in the Final Four, obviously, but I think Gonzaga gave them their best run for their money based on who they've played so far. And I liked watching that game a lot, and I feel like it was really high intensity. And the end of the game was like good pressure from Gonzaga. They made it interesting. So I feel like that was definitely my most exciting game.
It's funny, I also have a Houston game. I have Purdue versus Houston.
Mm-hmm.
A game that maybe it's a little bit of a basic pick because it was like maybe the closest game we've had so far. But no matter where you tuned in, I watched this whole game. No matter where you tuned in, the game was within at least 8 points or less, especially that first half. That first half, it never really got out of hand for either team. The game was usually tied or within 2 points. Like neither team really took a big lead in that first half. So maybe I'm more in love with that first half of the game because I really enjoyed it. I rewatched it today, at just in my free time, just rewatched that only the first half, and it just felt like there was so much energy in that stadium with both teams. It felt like it was just you can't explain it without watching it. There's certain intangibles that you just get while watching that game. It was a pretty tight whistle, is what I like to say. There was only 23 free throws total from both sides, which isn't a lot. They were really letting these guys play, and it was physical that game, and it ended with a crazy inbound play that really was perfect by Houston. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great ending. I don't have many notes because I think both teams just battled. I have 23 offensive rebounds total. Total. Now, to put that in perspective, neither team had more than 23 defensive rebounds total. So that means there were more total offensive rebounds than either team had defensive rebounds. That's crazy.
That is
That's how you
crazy.
know these guys were fighting out there for their lives. And the stat sheet may look a little sloppy, but when you get into the nitty gritty stuff and really watch that game, you're like, damn, these guys are really working their ass off to win this game. And you could tell, and I think that was my favorite game so far.
Yeah, I like that game too. Braden Smith is a outstanding guard. And
Hmm.
it's always tough for like a guard to lead a team in March Madness, with not a lot of help around him. But I feel like he did that, and he did that well. So I like that game a lot. And speaking about endings of games, I feel like a little shout out to Maryland's game winner has to be said because
Yes.
that not only was that a really good game winner and basically the only one that we've had in March Madness this year. But I mean, that was a good game too. Colorado State gave a real fight. They hit a big, big, big three near the end, and then
Hmm.
Derek Queen just ices it. May have been a travel, honestly, might have been. But I mean, I don't mind them letting it go.
I mean, listen, this is a totally different basketball as far as college and even pros than what we're used to, I'm sure. We're both from New England, so I'm sure we're used to a little bit more tighter calls as far as travels go. It's totally different now. They're going to let that stuff fly. Listen, they let it go the whole game. They're not going to call it in the last 10 seconds of a match, right? So, but I think you have a good point. I think uh, giving a shout out to any other game is totally natural, but I think that the three games we talked about were all pretty great, and but I just really hope we get more closer games. And I know that there's going to be some analysts that'll tell you that you shouldn't really expect game winners every time, but it's March Madness. This is what we expect. This has happened
Mhm.
year after year. We get the crazy moments where a 10 seed takes down the whatever seed in in cinematic fashion almost, and almost like a film. And I think that's what we're missing a little bit this March Madness. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, on top of the fact that it's really top seed heavy this year,
Yeah.
there's also there's been some close games, but really only one. I'd give the Houston game somewhat of a game winner. It sealed the game with that inbound play. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
only one true game winner in March Madness is somewhat disappointing as a fan because I mean, you never want to see a blowout, especially if you're kind of rooting for two different teams that you don't know a whole lot about, and that's kind of all what March Madness is about. Because I mean, you might have
Right.
one favorite team, but you have 64 teams entering the tournament. So, but I think I agree with you. I mean, this March Madness has been good, but it's been a little bit less exciting than I feel like the country was hoping for.
I think that leads us into the final four, which is what we'll wrap up with. That'll be the final point, and I'll let you go. I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but are you expecting game winners? This is all one seed. In theory, this should be the highest level of basketball possible. We have 4 1 seeds. I don't know if this has ever happened. I'm sure it has before, but what are you expecting out of these last couple games of the season?
Speaking on the two games that we have first in the Final Four,
Mm-hmm.
Duke and Houston. Houston's known for their defense and their coaching ability, but I think Duke's just going to run them out of the building.
I thought that too.
I don't think Houston's defense is going to be able to keep up with Duke's offense. So I think that that'll be more of like a 10-point win for Duke, and I don't think it'll be very close. I feel like it'll be a commanding 10-point win. Auburn, though, I don't know. I mean, Clayton, I love him for Florida, but
Yeah.
they got some dogs. I mean, Todd Pettiford is it's really refreshing to watch him play,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like as we progress, we're seeing more bigger guards, and he's the definition of a smaller guard that makes it work. He hits tough shots, and if I see like a game winner coming soon, I see him hitting it or Walter Clayton Jr. for
Yeah.
Florida. So I think that game will be really good, and I think the winner of that will take Duke to a close game as well. I don't know who will win it all, but I definitely have Duke in my championship, I'd say. And I don't know. It's a coin flip between those two teams. I mean, Florida might be more overall stronger, but I think Auburn's got some real, like, those two guys with Brum and Pettiford. I feel like that 1-2 punch is really hard to stop right now.
See, this is bad podcasting because I have the same thing as you. I have Duke and Florida both winning. This is terrible. But I agree with you on pretty much everything you said. So I'll try to make some different points. My only difference is I actually do have Florida over Auburn. I had a 2 point win. So I kind of agree with you there. I think there will be a Walter Clayton game winner. I said that I had a little blurb that Walter Clayton makes the difference. And we've seen Florida beat Auburn not too long ago in the regular season. So I think this is normal territory for a team like Florida. Now, as far as Duke goes, I think Houston can give them a run for their money. And I know you said 10-point game. I have 4 point game here. But again, I think Flag is just too overwhelming. I think this is what makes the difference. I know Duke has a really strong team overall. I really like some of the guys at Duke. At a I was at a bar and with my dad, and everyone was talking, and we just silently watched the Duke game. I think it might have been the first round, and everyone was talking. My whole family was just talking. We were just watching the game. We were so locked in because Duke is so fun to watch. They really are. They're a really good time. So I don't think I have many other notes to make about Duke over Houston. But do you have any last thoughts before we end it? And then we'll regroup after the Final Four and maybe the national championship, and we'll get some final thoughts. But as for right now, what do you got?
You did mention before you don't remember the last time that there was all one seeds in the Final Four, but I searched it up and it was 2008. So it
Oh,
kind of
really? Okay.
shows like the length of how long it's been since we've had a top like
Were you
this type of
alive
March Madness.
back then?
No, I was actually. I was one, so I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
watching. I wasn't watching, but I was
I
alive.
was too, so that's fine.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think the Duke game might be more set in stone. I feel like Houston could do something, but I really like Duke. But the Auburn Florida game, I like both of those teams, and I think both those teams give Duke a run for their money. But
Yeah.
Duke looks like they could be the national champion. I think they have proven themselves. They've had some really good victories, and I don't think they've been tested that much. So that could be their one downfall, maybe. But I like Duke a lot still, for sure. Yeah,
Is that all you got for us before we wrap up today?
I believe so. Yeah,
Well, Carter, it has been a serious pleasure. I don't just say that. It's been a really good time. It's only been about 40 minutes, but it feels like 10 minutes. Like I swear, it just flew by. But I want to say thank you for being a part of this. You have like some serious ball knowledge, and I don't just say that to anybody. I wouldn't lie to you. So I hope you'll join us again sometime if you're down
for
for that.
sure. Yeah, I love podcasts. I love watching podcasts, and like
Yeah.
being on one is always like a dream of mine. So even if we're talking to one viewer or a million viewers, I'd love being on podcasts and talking about sports. I can tell that you know a lot about basketball, and I know you share some football knowledge that I try to as well. But I mean, I love this. I enjoy this a lot, and I'll definitely hop on again. We could talk about basketball, football, and we could talk about anything. But I agree. Um, I try my best with basketball to try and know what I'm talking about, as that's my favorite sport.
Mhm.
I was really glad that I met you at the Sports Summit. So I really
Yeah.
hope to hop on another podcast again soon, talk about NBA or March Madness or whatever. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course. Honestly, I love that mentality. So just to wrap this up, Carter, again, thank you for being here.
All right, we're back. We're talking about the Nintendo Switch 2. Not too many days ago, you got a really in-depth look. It was like an hour-long presentation about what to expect from the Nintendo Switch 2. So I'm going to give you the quick details. I'm sure there's a lot of you that are interested. If you know me, you know I'm a big video game guy. But here is just major cliff notes. I know nobody wants to read a million articles and try to piece together information, so I'm going to give you the important stuff right now. Price. That's the one thing everyone's concerned about. $449.99, so $450. And if you get the bundle with Mario Kart, and we'll get into Mario Kart in a second, it'll be about $500. Released in just 2 months, June 5th, 2025. Now, a lot of people were surprised by this, including myself. Again, we'll talk more about this later, but Nintendo has a lot of games for the OG Nintendo Switch scheduled for the rest of this year and into 2026. So what happens there is going to be pretty interesting. The screen, because it is a portable, it is a hybrid system. It's partially portable. The screen is 7.9 inches. That is bigger than the Nintendo Switch, but it is the same amount of thickness. It's not extra heavy at all. So it's definitely gonna make things easier. Screen is 1080p, and then at home on your big TV, it goes up to 4K, which is important for a lot of reasons. Nintendo's not used to doing something quite so powerful. They always seem to be like 3 steps behind power-wise, but always 3 steps ahead creativity-wise. I know maybe by the time we're gonna look back in like 2 years and the next PlayStation and Xbox are gonna be 8K or whatever comes next, but 4K looks really great. Like 4K is not ugly looking at all. Now we're gonna get into one of the major issues is the price of games. Game prices are ranging from about $70 to $80. I know $70 doesn't seem like that much, but with a game like Mario Kart World, which is Nintendo's flagship title and the key launch title to the Nintendo Switch 2, is being priced at $80. Now, I think people will still buy it, and we'll talk more about if this will hurt sales at all later. But $80 for a Mario game is absurd. Truthfully, I mean, I truthfully will end up probably buying the game, of course, but it seems a little obtuse. Now, some key details about Mario Kart World. Free roaming, so you can drive around the map as much as you want. 24 players are able to play at once. This is the first ever Mario Kart game to do that. And there's a bunch of new mechanics. You can drive on top of the water. You can just sink right under. You can grind on walls. You can grind on rails. There's a photo mode. And the biggest thing that stuck out to me, this is the best looking Mario Kart game ever. And you may think that's obvious because it's on a 4K system. Obviously, it's going to look good. But when you look at the cell shading, when you look at lighting, when you look at character expression, there's so much heart that went into this game that you can kind of talk yourself into $80. And I know $80 is a lot for a Mario Kart game, but when you really take a step back and look at all the new features they're adding, there's a lot of characters added, but I don't really care about that stuff. But this is really could be the best Mario Kart game ever. And we're coming off Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which to me are the best Mario Kart games ever. And I've played pretty much all of them. So this is just another step into, wow, like where do you even go from here? Like, I think we thought that with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where this game was so packed, filled with so many characters, courses, and extra modes, where it's like, where do you even go from here? And then they come out with Mario Kart World, and I really insist you watch that trailer. The trailer is truly incredible. It's like 3 minutes, and they are doing some gameplay. There's going to be some gameplay done by Nintendo employees online. I definitely insist you look into that as well. Even if you're just partially considering buying a Switch 2, this stuff's important, and I think this is going to really change things up. They talked a lot about voice chat on Nintendo Switch. This is the first time we're going to have real game chat, like, through the system. If you remember with the Switch, you'd have to go through, like, a phone. So people would just use Discord or whatever, obviously, because that is ridiculous. You'd have to use a phone, like a Switch app, in order to talk to your friends. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. I never used it, because why the hell would I do that? But this is Nintendo taking another big swing, and you can talk through the system, and there's going to be voice isolation. So even if there is noise in the background, you will still be able to hear, or your friends will still be able to hear you, which I think is a concept where it's like, if it works, it works. But if it doesn't work, Nintendo's going to look very foolish, and they're going to look a little ridiculous if it doesn't go through. And there will be a camera sold separately. I believe it's priced at $60, where basically that's like how your friends will be able to see you, if you so choose. You don't need to get that necessarily, but if you want your friends to be able to see you as you're playing the game and you're on voice chat, that's how it's done. And I don't know if that's going to sell very well, but it's a very interesting concept. It looks like a tripod, but it's just a camera on the end of it. I don't know how good the quality is. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered there, but I think we'll get into those pretty soon. It online will be free for everybody until, I think they said, March 31st of 2026. I may have that wrong, so someone fact check me on that, but it is until March at least. So again, this system comes out in June, so that's about 9 months you'll get to use online for Nintendo Switch 2 to see if it's a good investment. It's not super expensive, and I think now with real voice chat and game chat, it'll make things a little more exciting. What else do we got? Oh, yes. This was a really confusing point to me. The Nintendo Switch 2 will use upgraded games from the original Nintendo Switch, meaning that obviously you can play your current games from your current Nintendo Switch on your Switch 2, but there will be some upgrades or updates added. They didn't go into a ton of detail, but from what I understand, there will be some free stuff, some paid stuff. We're not really sure about that completely, but the big example they used was Mario Party Jamboree, which adds some new modes. It adds mouse capability with your Nintendo Switch Joy-Con. Again, I don't really understand why they need to do this. I think maybe they just don't have a lot prepared as far as for new first-party games. So they're just kind of shoehorn that in. It's just like, hey, look at this. You can play a new mode in Mario Party, a game nobody really bought. I think that's kind of what's going on here. That they did mention, like, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as two really major games that use this capability. Again, we don't know much about it. They went into a little bit of detail, but not a lot. Third-party support's great this time around. With the Switch, when it first came out, it was pretty questionable. We had Skyrim really early on, but Skyrim was already like a decade old at that point, and it's just as old now. So obviously we're not getting Skyrim, but we're going to get Elden Ring, Cyberpunk, EA and 2K are both fully giving their support to this game. We're getting Borderlands 4. We're going to get all the WWE, NBA 2K, FIFA, Madden games. All will be on Nintendo Switch 2 for the foreseeable future, which is awesome. I mean, those are games that sell. I don't really like a lot of those games, but those are games that are going to sell, right? So I think stuff like that's important. There's a lot more that I didn't mention. On the top of my head, I don't know if I mentioned Cyberpunk 2077. That's a pretty big game that people play a lot now. At first, it had really bad reviews because it didn't work. Like, when the game doesn't work, it's not a great sign. So, I think they're in a good spot right now, third party wise. I think with it being 4K, it's going to really help. But I have some questions about that. We'll get to later. They announced Donkey Kong Bonanza and Kirby Air Riders. Donkey Kong Bonanza is basically a open world, seemingly 3D Donkey Kong game. And it's important because we haven't had one of those in about 25, 26 years, I think. So this is a really big step. Brand new art style, a lot of brand new gameplay mechanics. Another thing, you just have to really watch the trailer to really pick up on those things. It looks good. But again, it's going to be priced at $70. On a different system, that might be a $50 game. So when it comes down to things like that, it's just like, why? Like, we don't know much about it completely. I mean, I think we still have a couple months till it comes out, and I'm sure they'll reveal more as time goes on. But I think Nintendo's really banking on Mario Kart World being a success. And again, Kirby Air Riders was announced. It's going to be developed by Masahiro Sakurai. If you don't know him, he made all the Smash Bros. Games. So, kind of a genius and kind of a legend in video games. Definitely will be a game that I'll have to check out. Not sure what the thought process is doing it the same year as Mario Kart. I get they're different games, but a racing game, there's a little bit of overlap for sure. But I think there will be people that buy Kirby Air Riders. And it does look pretty good so far, but I don't think we have a firm release date on that quite yet. Now, one of the big problems I have is that the original Nintendo Switch has a ton of games that are still yet to come out. They talked about Metroid Prime 4, and there will be a Nintendo Switch 2 version. But again, this was a game that was announced in 2017 for the Nintendo Switch Metroid Prime 4. They got through a lot of it. They restarted it. They scrapped it, started again, and now Metroid Prime 4 is finally coming out this year, and we'll also have a Switch 2 version. Pokemon Legends ZA is another example of that, where it was originally planned for the Switch, but I think it just coincided with the Switch 2, so they're going to have both versions come out. Again, it's not a bad move, but then you get into stuff like Rhythm Heaven Groove and Tomodachi Life. What is it called? Living the Dream. Still getting used to that title because that's kind of a choppy title. But yeah, those games are planned for 2026, and we don't really know what it's looking like as far as, are these coming to Switch 2? Or are they just going to be Switch exclusives? Obviously, there's backwards compatibility with these games, but it'll be interesting to see what happens as far as, will these games also have a Switch 2 version? I don't think we know that yet as of now, as I'm recording this, but certainly will be interesting. And let's just talk about some of the questions I have. This isn't meant to be a super long segment, but again, what will happen in those 2026 games? Those are two games I really am interested in playing, especially Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream. How will Elden Ring, a game like Elden Ring, work in portable mode? Because again, this is a really big game. Elden Ring is a game the majority of its users play on PC. So how will that work if the portable console can only go up to 1080p, I think 60 FPS, right? I don't know exactly how that's going to go. I don't think they're going to limit the game where you have to play it in TV mode, excuse me. But it will certainly be interesting to see what happens with that. No new Mario, no brand new Zelda. We did get a Hyrule Warriors, but that's not really mainline Zelda. Nobody cares about that. And no new Animal Crossing. Now, I get the Zelda part because they talked a lot about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but I think we're waiting on that third version in that trilogy, right? I think that's kind of what we're all waiting for. We haven't got a brand new original 3D Mario game in 8 years. Getting close to it. Almost 8 years, like 7.5 years. And no new Animal Crossing. I don't know if that's going to come out anytime soon, but again, the last Animal Crossing came out 5 years ago. I think we're kind of getting close to being due for a brand new Animal Crossing, but not really sure. Will the high prices hurt the Switch 2 sales gameplay-wise? I think that $449 is not an insane price for a 4K system, but some of the price of the games are not great. $80 for new Mario Kart, $70 for Donkey Kong, probably $80 for Metroid Prime 4. It's just a guess. I don't know for sure, but if I had to guess, because that's going to be a pretty big game. Will people still be buying that? I think with a game like Mario Kart World, people are still going to buy it no matter what, right? I think that no matter what, we're still going to get people that are buying those games. Donkey Kong, that one's up in the air. because Donkey Kong's a recognizable face, but this is not a standard Donkey Kong game that we're used to. The last 2 decades, we've been used to the 2D games we've seen with Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country Returns. So to see what happens there will be quite interesting as far as sales go. I thought this was weird. No new Joy-Con. Now, Joy-Con were a really big thing with the original Switch, so maybe they're kind of getting away from that now. But as far as no new Joy-Con, I mean color-wise. And I know that's not maybe the most important thing to people, but the original Switch had a big focus on Joy-Con colors. We got so many different colors. I know I bought a lot of them. I remember the first year of the Switch, we had the gray, red, blue, yellow that came out with, ARMS, pink and green that came out with Splatoon 2, and I believe there was a standard red that came out with Mario Odyssey. So we had a lot of Joy-Con just year one, and there's no sign of that, anything quite like that. And I think that the sales weren't great, if I had to guess, but I guess we'll see what happens. Now, here's my hot take. I think the Nintendo Switch 2 will be the greatest system ever. And I'm not just saying that for views. I really think that could happen if Nintendo goes all the way on this. Now, let's think about these factors. You have the entire original Switch library at your access at all times. A load of third-party games, and they're only going to keep going. I think we will get GTA 6 eventually. I think that is definitely a high chance. Again, we're not completely sure on GTA 6 official release date or anything like that, but a Nintendo Switch 2 version would not shock me if we got that anytime soon. The coming library of the Switch 2 looks great. Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza. I know I kind of, had some criticism about those games, but I think they will be great, especially Mario Kart World. I think that will be a really, really great game. And I think Nintendo's finally mastering the hybrid mentality. Like, they're going all the way on making this the perfect hybrid system. The Switch had a lot of flaws, but I think those are all going to be fixed. I think the drifting is going to be fixed because I talked about that before this previous presentation. I think the magnets and the Joy-Con will work. It's a little scary, but I think they will work. The fan and the home console version, I think that will work really well. They added a new kickstand for portable play, which I think is a really good move, and it looks really good. And again, it is more powerful than any Nintendo system we've seen before. 4K in the home console is not something I completely expected. I don't know where we would go, but I didn't think 4K would be that step, but definitely not complaining. I think that's a really good move for Nintendo. And I think that they've proven to their audience that they can really make a great system. I remember the first year of Nintendo Switch sales were a little slow. People weren't totally sold on it. And then once we got towards the Animal Crossing era of the Switch, when we were in COVID, I think a lot of people started buying it. A lot of people I know personally bought their Switch around the 2020, 2021 time period. That was really when things got going because Animal Crossing was all the hype, and that got a lot of people to buy a Switch. Now, to wrap this up, I think the Switch 2 will be a huge success. I don't know if it will outsell, if it will become the best-selling system of all time. But I do believe that if Nintendo plays their cards right, and if they deliver on these promises, because there are some really, really high-risk, high-reward moments that are going on with this thing, if they capitalize, this could be the best video game system ever. With that being said, thank you for watching. I've been your host, Connor Lewis, signing off.